Welcome to this week's View from the Top analysis. This week our guest is Muhtar Kent, the Chief Executive of the Coca-Cola Company. Mr. Kent was in New York City for this year's Clinton Global Initiative, speaking on a panel about the continued changes in the Middle East.
We basically believe that we have to play a meaningful role in creating sustainable communities. Sustainable communities will lead to a sustainable business. That's a belief, that inert belief that we have. And so, and as the spring unfolds in the Middle East and North Africa, and as people we see not only search for, don't have only a quest for income, but also for dignity, that inevitably is going to lead to better communities.
Joining me to discuss the interview is the Financial Times U.S. consumer correspondent, Alan Rappeport. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.
As a company that operates in more countries than the UN, Coke arguably has one of the widest footprints in the world. How important are the emerging markets for the company?
Coke's very focused in emerging markets, particularly China, Africa. They've been investing a lot in those two places, as well as Brazil and India. Mr. Kent was particularly bullish about China. They recently announced a $4 billion investment over the next few years there, which is on top of the billions of dollars they were already investing in China. And he made some interesting comments saying that China has become a more business-friendly environment than the United States, because they've been doing a good job of generating incentives and getting the different provinces there to compete for international investment. So it was quite interesting, and I think that's been a good reason why Coke has done so well despite the downturn, because they're so diversified geographically.
Despite Coke's continued global expansion, Mr. Kent believes the economic recovery will be particularly long for much of the West, but he says he does not believe there will be another recession.
I still do not believe that there will be another major recession. I do believe, however, that both in Japan, as well as in Western Europe, as well as in North America, particularly in the United States, that the recovery is going to be long and weak. It's going to take longer than what people have been used to, and it's going to take it's going to take a lot of work, hard work.
Alan, there's a bit of measured optimism. Where do you think this attitude is coming from?
Well, as we said before, Coke has business all around the world, so I think while some parts of the world are not doing well, Mr. Kent can still focus on other areas that are doing well, so they're very well diversified. In the U.S., he was very concerned about the state of the U.S. consumer. He continuously calls them confused and notes this disconnect between economic growth, which still has been sluggish, and job creation, which has been pretty flat. So I think there, he's hoping that the U.S. will start creating more incentives for businesses to thrive. He did think that some of the troubles that we're seeing in the Eurozone might be overblown, and that they're sort of more contained to Greece and other specific parts of Europe, and that contagion and that sort of a global recession might not occur.
And finally, many countries have begun to consider a possible soda tax in response to rising obesity rates. Mr. Kent says this effort is simply an attempt for underfunded governments to generate funds.
I think we have to recognize today in the world that all governments are short of funds, and they're looking to generate funds. All governments, everywhere in the world there's a crisis, and everywhere you look, governments are looking for revenue. And I just want to say that we are a business that's growing. We're a business that therefore is paying increasing amounts of tax wherever we operate, in direct and indirect taxes. And I would just say to all governments that are looking to increase taxes, the best method is ensuring that businesses remain healthy, so that they can collect more revenue as a result of the health of those businesses.
Clearly this is a question that Coke and Mr. Kent would probably choose to avoid, but the American Beverage Association with Coke have spent millions lobbying against such efforts here in the United States. They've even sued New York City's Department of Health, saying that the department was misrepresenting its products. What's the status of the so-called soda taxes?
Right, well, companies are definitely concerned about this, and as you said, they're investing a lot to fight any potential soda taxes in the U.S. or around the world. Interestingly, a couple weeks ago, Coke had a situation in France where they said that they were going to stop their investment in France because of the pending soda tax there. They did decide to change their tune after they got some criticism from the French government, and said they would carry on with that. Muhtar Kent said to us that he would not withhold investment from any countries or regions that did impose a soda tax. But they definitely try and fight against the connection between obesity and their product. They make the case that they're offering zero-calorie beverages, and they're basically just giving consumers options. They're not forcing them to drink their product. So I think it'll be interesting to see in the U.S. Soda taxes have not really caught on so far, even though there's been a lot of discussion bubbling up. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Alan. And thank you for joining us. And please join us next week for another View from the Top.